Welcome to Cook Let's Do This. Today I am making risotto, shrimp risotto. Risotto is made from a short grain rice called arborio rice. And unlike most types of rice dishes, you do not want to rinse this rice off with water before you start cooking it. We actually want the starch that's in this rice. So before you get to the actual rice itself, we need a broth that we mix in with the risotto. We need about 5 cups of liquid. I use 2.5 cups of chicken stock. You could certainly use seafood stock since we're making this with shrimp. I also added 1.25 cups of, no, 1.25 cups of white wine, chardonnay, and 1.25 cup of water. Then I added some vegetables. I added some half of a white onion whole, and a cut up carrot, and a cut up red pepper, 1 garlic clove, and some parsley and a little sea salt. And you want that to cook for about 30 minutes before you start cooking the rice. So I got that broth going on medium heat. Then I made some shrimp. I got some garlic and butter, got that going, and then added the shrimp. Now, after I clean the shrimp, I devein them. I cut them down the back and cut them down the underbelly. Even if the veins have already been removed from your shrimp, it's still a good idea to cut them down the back because they will taste better if you make that cut. So I cooked those for about 3 minutes on each side, and then I started with the rice itself, with the risotto. And what I started with was some olive oil in the cast iron skillet, and I added the other half of the white onion. You could also use yellow onion. And this half I cut into little bitty pieces, chopped very finely. You fry that up. You don't want it to quite get brown, more of a translucent color. Then you add 1 cup of arborio rice. And you cook that for a few minutes. Again, you don't want that to get brown. And then you start ladling as that, let me back up. Then you add 3 or 4 ounces of dry white wine, like a chardonnay. Once that liquid is mostly dried up and your arborio rice is starting to get dry, then you ladle in the broth, 1 ladle at a time. And you have to be here the whole time. It's going to take about 18 to 20 minutes from the time you start cooking the rice itself. And you got to keep stirring. So once you put your rice in, this is your baby. You can't leave it. After about 16 minutes, I'll start tasting it, see if it's close to done. When it's close to done, that's when I'm going to put in a couple tablespoons of butter and my shrimp. And then I'm going to put in a generous amount of Parmesan. And I'll probably put in a little parsley flakes. I also added some parsley to the broth, I forgot to mention. So we are at about 16 minutes. Generally it takes about 18 to 20. I just want to get an idea what it tastes like. And we're close. We're not quite there, but we're close. Needs a little more broth. And in about another 2 minutes, I'm going to start adding in the rest of the ingredients. When you add in the other ingredients, you turn your heat down from medium down to low. Some people say even turn it off, but I want the shrimp to cook a little bit more. And even if I'm not using shrimp, I want everything to kind of cook together and gel together very well. So instead of turning it off, I usually leave it on low. Some people tell you really don't have to stay here the whole time. You can step away for a little bit. I don't recommend it. If you're cooking this on the proper temperature, which is medium, it's cooking pretty hot, I think if you're not stirring, you're gonna have problems with it. Okay, so we are at about the 18-minute mark. I think we're basically there. I'm going to turn the heat down to low, add about 2 tablespoons of butter, some parsley flakes. If you have fresh parsley, that's great. I don't happen to have it today. I'm going to add a little bit of sea salt for flavor, but not much because I'm going to add a lot of Parmesan. And I think Parmesan is pretty salty to begin with. So I want to be careful about not getting it too salty. I could always add a little bit more salt if I want once I plate it. So we'll get that butter completely mixed in. Again, we're on low heat at this point, and I can go ahead and turn off my broth because I'm done with that. And now I'm going to add in my shrimp. If you wanted to keep this vegetarian, of course, excuse me, if you wanted to keep this vegetarian, you could do everything I'm doing except don't add any shrimp. And that is still a very wonderful tasting dish. I do that myself sometimes as well. And between the rice and the butter and the Parmesan and the broth, that in and of itself is a really tasty dish. Okay, now we're almost starting to get dry, and I don't want to get dry, so I'm going to turn off the heat, add my Parmesan, stir that in, and then we are done. If I can get the plastic. So you add as much Parmesan as you want. I really like Parmesan, so I'm going to add a rather generous amount. And usually after I plate this, I'll also grate a little bit of Parmesan and put it on top as well. Because, as I've said before, you really never can have too much Parmesan. And we'll give it one last stir. Get that Parmesan mixed around nicely. Oh, I'm getting hungry. This will fill you up. So, there we have it. Shrimp risotto. I hope you'll try it, and I definitely hope you'll like it. Enjoy.